Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me for another true crime deep dive. And today we're finishing up with our Jared from Subway series, where we discuss how this goofy, everyman sandwich spokesman turned out to be the most celebrated pedophile of our time. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I have linked it in the description box and you should watch that first, or else none of this will make any sense. But I'll give you a brief summary of what we went over in part 1 just to get us all warmed up and on the same page, which sounds like something that creepy-ass Jared Fogle would say, so I apologize for that. I'm not getting anybody warmed up here. All right, warm yourself up. Okay, so in the spring of 1998, Jared Fogle was just a sad, friendless college student from Indianapolis who weighed 425 pounds. And as a result of his weight, he was experiencing some health issues. And he realized he needed to make a change. So Jared decided to start eating only low-fat Subway sandwiches. And in no time, he had dropped hundreds of pounds, and he was the new relatable face of the fast food chain who wanted to convince the public that eating their fast food, Subway's fast food, was better than eating other fast food. And we're going to talk a little bit at the end of the video about why that probably wasn't true then and isn't true now, but don't come for me, Subway. So for some reason that I still have yet to understand, Jared the Subway guy became famous. He was everywhere, and he was traveling the country, meeting all of his new fans and friends, but also hanging out in middle schools because evidently he had a thing for underage children. Now, we've been bouncing around in the timeline a little bit, and I'm trying to keep it organized, and I hope it's not been hard to follow along with, but we basically left off in 2014 when a police investigation was kickstarted. And this police investigation was kind of focused initially on Russell Taylor. And Russell Taylor was the head of the Jared Foundation. And the Jared Foundation was a nonprofit organization that Jared Fogle had created, pretending to care about childhood obesity, pretending to care about children and their health and their lives. But in reality, Jared did this so he could have a legitimate reason, or what looked like a legitimate reason, to get close to children who were his potential victims. Now, this investigation into Russell Taylor would eventually move on to other people, such as Russell Taylor's wife, Angela, and then on to Jared Fogle himself. So we are sort of starting today's video in 2014 with the details of what that investigation uncovered. But first, before we get into it and I get agitated, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Helix Sleep. Sleep is a tricky thing, and for a long time, most of my life, I was getting too little of it. I'm still getting too little of it, right? But back then, the quality of my sleep was terrible. And honestly, when you're talking about sleep and you don't have a chance to get a lot of it, you want to make sure that at least you're getting good sleep. But back then, when I wasn't getting good sleep, I was really struggling to make it through each day. And then it was like so depressing because I knew at the end of the day, there wasn't even going to be any relief when I got into bed, even though I was so tired because my mattress was so uncomfortable and lumpy, and I would just toss and turn all night and wake up feeling as if I had not slept at all. But climbing onto my Helix Sleep mattress at night has been a game changer. And even on those nights when I don't get enough sleep, which is every night, I know the quality of my sleep will be great. Helix Sleep makes premium mattresses and bedding that are customized to fit your needs. And the Helix lineup includes 14 unique mattresses. They have a bunch of luxury models. They've got a mattress for big and tall sleepers. They have a mattress made just for kids. My daughter, Bella, sleeps on that mattress, and I really like that because she's still young enough where sometimes I gotta crawl in bed with her at night, and it's not like a normal kid's mattress where you feel like there's no support for you as an adult. It's completely comfortable enough for me as her adult parent to sleep in bed next to her and not feel like I'm sleeping on the floor. Helix knows that there's no better way to test out a new mattress than by sleeping on it in your own home, and that's why they offer something really cool. They offer you a 100-night risk-free trial. So you can sleep on the mattress, see how your body adjusts. You can see if it's for you. You can see if it's for your partner, if you sleep with somebody. Everyone is unique. Everyone has a different body type. Everyone has a different sleep preference. Everyone sleeps differently. So what you're going to want to do before you order your Helix Sleep mattress is take the Helix Sleep Quiz. And then that way you're going to find out what your perfect mattress is in under 2 minutes. Now, Helix has a ton of different models to choose from, right? We've got models that are designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. There's models with memory foam layers to provide optimal pressure relief if you sleep on your side, like me. There's models with more responsive foam to cradle your body for essential support in stomach and back sleeping positions. Like I said, I'm a side sleeper. I always have been, like fetal position, trauma positions. But I like a firmer mattress for support because I know I act tough, but I'm still just a little girl that needs some support, We all need some support. Some Helix mattresses have enhanced cooling features to keep you from overheating at night. They have everything. And when I took the sleep quiz a couple of years back, I was matched with the Midnight Luxe mattress. I've been sleeping on it for at least 3 years now, maybe more. And it is just as amazing now as it was when I first got it. I still don't get as many hours of sleep as I would want to, but at least I don't wake up feeling like it. I don't have the same body aches that I used to have with my old mattress. And I wake up feeling like I slept the whole time I was in bed. I wasn't tossing and turning. And you don't have to take my word for it. Helix has over 12,000 five-star reviews. They've been awarded the #1 mattress picked by GQ and Wired magazine, and they're even recommended by multiple leading chiropractors and doctors of sleep medicine as a go-to solution for improving your sleep. And I have a really, really good deal for you. If you're in the market for a new bed right now with your Helix Sleep mattress, you can get a 100-night sleep trial along with a 10-year warranty. I love the fact that Helix is going to ship this mattress to you right to your door for free within the U.S. It comes in a box, and you think, like, how's my mattress in this box? I ordered a king mattress, but it is in there. It's very cool, very easy to set up, and there's even financing options and flexible payment plans. I love my Helix mattress. I've loved her for years, and I know that you would as well. So, like I said, you're looking for a new bed, check out Helix right now. You can click the link in the description box below or go to helixsleep.com/Harlowe. And with that, not only are you going to get the mattress, the 100 nights to try it out for free shipping within the US, and a 10-year warranty, but you're also going to get 20% off your Helix mattress plus 2 free pillows. Once again, I'm going to repeat that. Click the link below or go to helixsleep.com/Harlowe for 20% off your new Helix Sleep mattress plus 2 free pillows. And listen, I don't have a lot of time to talk about this. I don't want to keep going on. The pillows are bomb. I'm just going to tell you, the pillows are bomb, okay? So click link in the description. Get your Helix Sleep mattress for yourself. Thank you so much to Helix for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. So in September of 2014, a woman known in court records only as Jane Doe went to the Indiana State Police with concerns about her friends, Russell and Angela Taylor. Now, this woman, Jane Doe, knew the Taylors through her husband, and sadly, her husband had passed away the prior year. So he had been dead for about a year, and I guess she'd been spending some more time with Russell and Angela Taylor and getting kind of close. I don't know exactly what they were doing, but I do know that Russell and Angela were into swinging stuff and sex parties and stuff. So was this woman Jane Doe in on the sex parties? Maybe. Who cares? That's none of my business. As long as the sex parties don't include animals or children, I don't care what you do. So that may have been where their closeness sort of developed into, because I feel like there definitely was something going on between Jane Doe and the Taylors as far as sexually, because Russell Taylor clearly felt comfortable sending this woman Jane Doe things that I don't feel you would comfortably send a regular neighbor or friend. So communications from Russell Taylor and his wife, often via text message, kind of went from just being friendly and flirtatious to something that Jane Doe felt was over the line when Russell Taylor offered to send her images of CSAM. And if you were here for the last video, you know what that means, and you know why I cannot say the actual full term, because apparently YouTube's okay with a lot of garbage being on this platform, but they don't want you to talk about the abuse of children. So the series of text messages that this Jane Doe woman felt was inappropriate or were inappropriate, one of the text messages included an offer from Russell Taylor to provide this Jane Doe woman with images of various illegal pornographic acts, including acts that were kind of featuring young girls, children, underage people, minors. And so obviously this woman declined, and she's like, no, I don't want this stuff. Now, in one of these text messages, Russell Taylor asked if he and another adult female could come to Jane Doe's residence and engage in an act of bestiality. I'm probably going to get banned for that. But this woman, she didn't agree to that request either. But she told the investigators when she reported Russell Taylor, she said you could tell that Taylor was serious. And she also told investigators that she'd received an image file via text from Russell Taylor that depicted another act of bestiality. Okay, so let me clarify things a little bit. Apparently, this woman, Jane Doe, boards horses on her property, and Russell Taylor had asked her if he and his wife, Angela, could come over to her house and have sex with her horses. And then he sent her a picture of his wife, Angela, and a dog. And I'm not going to tell you what Angela and the dog were doing, but understand, because I don't want to tell you what Angela and the dog were doing, it's probably not something you would normally do with your dog. They weren't cuddling on the couch. She wasn't like taking her dog for a walk. Let me just say that. And apparently it wasn't even Angela's dog, because the message that Russell Taylor sent along with this picture was, quote, "Here's Angie with her ex's dog," end quote. So Russell also sent Jane Doe a text asking her if she wanted to see images of young girls. And I guess she must have said yes in some context to that question, because he wrote back asking how young, like how young would she be okay with? And she responded, legal age, to which Russell Taylor wrote, quote, "Okay, I wanted to ask. Keep in mind, we do travel to Thailand on occasion." End quote. So Jane Doe went to the police after getting these messages, and she told the police that Russell and Angela Taylor liked to be sexually involved with things like horses and bondage acts. Basically, what I got from it, what I got from all of these court records, because I'm trying to like sum them up, it seemed like Russell and Angela Taylor were into anything, like up for anything, as long as it was taboo, like anything that pushed the limits. They didn't want vanilla sex. They wanted things that were like really out there, and they were just kind of into anything. Like they wanted to do anything and everything. That's what I got from these records and these documents. So the Indiana State Police, along with the FBI, served a search warrant at the Taylor's home on April 29, 2015, and they found what they expected to find based on the reports they'd received. During the search, law enforcement officers found CSAM on multiple electronic devices in the residence, but they also found, while they were looking at these images, that it appeared some of the images and some of the videos had been taken in that very house. Based on the locations and the angles in the images and the videos, investigators were able to go through the house and locate several hidden cameras that had been placed around the home, specifically in the bedrooms and bathrooms of Angela Taylor's minor daughters. Remember, Angela married Russell, and when she did, she had 2 young daughters, Hannah and Christian. There were also hidden cameras that were designed to look like clocks, and these were found in the master bedroom and the upstairs hall bathroom. Now, Russell Taylor told the police that he had placed those cameras there in case of theft. But the detectives noticed that the angles of the cameras were pointed towards beds and places that a person might be naked, like, bathrooms, showers, things like that. So it turns out Russell Taylor was watching and recording his stepdaughters, Hannah and Christian, as well as their young friends, 24/7 for months, right? And it seemed like he was providing some of this material to other people. One of those people was Jared Fogle, Mr. Subway himself. Federal charging documents state that Jared first obtained CSAM videos and pictures from Russell Taylor in March of 2011, and these images were delivered to Jared via text message or on thumb drives. And I actually also read in a few articles that when Russell Taylor and Jared Fogle would travel together, Russell would make sure to bring like this laptop, and I think like the main purpose of this laptop was just to hold this material, so he'd bring it with them on trips so that they had access to the stuff that was on this computer. And some of this material featured children as young as 6. And it wasn't just the children as young as 6 being featured. they were involved in sex acts. And these images and videos were taken outside of the U.S., right? So some of this stuff that authorities found was produced in Russell Taylor's own home, because he apparently had a full-fledged video production studio in his basement. That's not a red flag. And some of it was taken overseas, and it feels like, or what it seems like, is the images and videos with the children as young as 6 were taken overseas, or produced overseas. I am having a hard time with this because my daughter Bella is 6, and I just cannot imagine. And I want to set every single person involved in this on fire, to be honest. That is what I would like to do. Like, just light a match, burn them all, gasoline, everything. In 2011, when Jared was gleefully receiving these sick images, his wife, Katie, his second wife, Katie McLaughlin, she was actually pregnant with their first child, a son who would be born in September of that year. Let that sink in. Okay, but hold on. We aren't done with Russell Taylor and his wife, Angela Taylor, because she is not innocent in this, not even close. And she would also be arrested and charged later on. Now, Russell Taylor was initially charged alone and in conspiracy with others, specifically Angela and Jared Fogle, and he was charged with sexually exploiting multiple minor children between 2011 and 2015. He was also charged with using hidden cameras in his home to record minor children changing in the bathroom, changing clothes, and engaging in sexual activity that was encouraged and sometimes orchestrated by Russell and Angela Taylor. Now, the Taylors' victims consisted of members of their family as well as friends, and several of the victims have disclosed that there was hands-on abuse by Russell and Angela Taylor. Here is a clip from a girl named Annalisa. She was only 14 when she became a victim of Russell Taylor.
But at the time, I didn't fully understand that.
What did the three of you do there during the summer?
We would mainly stay at the house. We didn't go out much. The only time we did leave was to go to the liquor store where Russell took us.
You were 14, she was 14, this other friend was the same age?
Yes.
Okay. So, obviously, you couldn't buy liquor. Who was buying the liquor for you?
Russell was buying liquor.
So, he was buying liquor and giving it to you?
Yes.
When you guys were drinking, did he drink with you?
No.
He just gave you the alcohol?
Yes.
Did he encourage you to do it? Did he make drinks for you?
He's the one that bought the alcohol. He didn't really pour any, but he was there.
And what were you drinking?
He bought us Smirnoff, beer.
So vodka and beer?
Yes, yes.
Did you guys drink to excess? I mean, did you get drunk?
Yes.
Like, really drunk?
Yes.
Did you pass out? Not remember what all happened? What went on?
I don't remember all that what happened, but I do remember being very, very intoxicated.
Are you at all concerned of anything that may have happened when you were really drunk? Because you may or may not remember it?
I am a little concerned, but I can only hope that nothing happened. I don't think anything happened.
And Annalisa is just one of the victims that's come out and talked about what the Taylors did to her. But there's other victims. For instance, minor victim 1 was a relative of Angela Taylor's, and she's found to be depicted in more than 10 videos created between 2011 and 2014. And this happened basically when she was in the 7th or 8th grade, because at that point, Russell Taylor had paid her to do data entry at his home office. And since she was too young to drive, Taylor would pick her up and bring her home. But there was no clerical work happening on these occasions. She wasn't in his office doing data entry. Instead, she was paid by Russell and Angela to perform sexual activity, including masturbation, performing oral sex on both Angela and Russell, and engaging in sexual intercourse with the couple as well. These are not just allegations, right? I know it's incredibly shocking to hear, and we'd like to believe that there's a possibility they aren't true, right? Because not only is this a very, very young girl, but she's related to Angela Taylor. So this is giving me Ken and Barbie killer vibes, right? Carla Homolka and what was his name? Paul B. Bernardino. I can't remember, but you know who I'm talking about. I actually have a series on the Ken and Barbie killers. If you would like to see it, I've linked it in my description box. But that's the vibes it's giving me. So like I said, these aren't just allegations. There's actual video proof. Not only was this girl seen on these videos, but law enforcement recovered text messages between Angela, Russell, and Jared discussing the sexual abuse of this girl, who, remember, was in the 7th or 8th grade at this time. So she could be 12, 13, 14, something like that. Now there's also minor victim 2, who was, again, a relative of Angela Taylor's. Minor victim 2 was Angela's 9-year-old niece, and she testified that she was molested by Angela and that she was forced to watch videos of Angela and Russell engaging in sexual activity. Angela Taylor later texted her husband about the things that she wanted to do to victim 2, who was her 9-year-old niece. And Angela also sent videos of different sex acts, I don't think necessarily featuring this girl, but sending Russell videos of things, sex things, and then saying, oh, I would like to do this to my 9-year-old niece. Okay? What a piece of shit. So the next victim was Angela's own daughter, Hannah. According to court documents, text messages exchanged between Angela and Russell Taylor established their shared sexual interest in Hannah. And these text messages also revealed that they both considered drugging Hannah so that they could sexually exploit her. Ken and Barbie, man, this is what, like, that is exactly what this is. They are Carla and Paul. Other text messages between Angela and Russell discuss obtaining nude photos of Hannah and also conversations as to whether or not she had developed pubic hair yet, as well as plans that could be enacted to get naked pictures of Hannah while she was asleep. This is Angela's daughter. Keep that in mind. Like, if you forgot how twisted this is, all on its own, very twisted. Add into that this is Angela's own daughter. Angela's speaking like this about her own daughter to her husband, I guess, but it's not like they'd been married for like 20 years. You know, you barely know this man compared to the relationship you have with your daughter. And this is what you're doing. Angela also sent her husband, Russell, pictures of her daughter, Hannah, in a bathing suit on June 21st, 2012. And 4 days after that, Russell talked with Angela in text message about using those photos that she had sent him of her daughter, Hannah, to get off. Masturbate, basically. The next victim is Christian, Angela's other daughter. Christian testified that both her mother and stepfather would encourage her to go online and use Omegle, a webcam-based chat website, and then using that webcam website, she would be encouraged by Russell and Angela to engage in sexual activity that included exposing herself and masturbating. And this was basically a ploy to capture her on their hidden cameras doing this stuff on the webcam. Christian also said that her mother and Russell Taylor would leave sex toys all over the house and then just encourage her to use them so they could catch her on camera doing it. And there were text messages between Angela and Russell where they discussed getting Christian to masturbate so that they could record it on one of their hidden cameras. When Russell Taylor was arrested, Jared Fogle pretended to be scandalized. He was clutching his pearls. He was like, oh my God, I'm shocked by these allegations and I've severed all ties with Russell Taylor, which ironically would be a similar statement made by Subway just a few months later, but they would be talking about Jared. Now the thing was, Jared wasn't scandalized. He wasn't shocked. He knew exactly what Russell Taylor was doing. In fact, Russell Taylor would basically claim that he'd only done this stuff because Jared forced him to, which, just for the record, in case you were wondering, I don't believe that. I think they were both sick, both equally into this sick shit. But Russell Taylor wasn't going to go down alone for this, right? He was going to try and give law enforcement a bigger fish, most likely hoping it would make his odds in court more favorable. Now, Russell Taylor did plead guilty in 2015 to 12 counts of producing CSAM and 1 count of distributing it, and then he started talking. He actually had to be evaluated by mental health professionals, and a lot of what he said about Jared came out in those sessions. He claimed that one day he'd mentioned to Jared that he had a nanny cam set up in his home, and this nanny cam was motion activated and hidden. And Russell Taylor told Jared that, you know, you and me, buddy, we travel a lot. We're going to Vegas. We're going to Singapore. We're going to, I don't know, Ohio, all of these places to visit subways and visit middle schools. And because there's a lot of people in and out of my house when I'm on the road traveling with you, I want to make sure I can see what's going on and I don't want people like robbing me. But Russell had a juicy little story for Jared. You know, one of those like, you'll never believe what happened. Russell told Jared that this legitimate nanny camera that's just there to, you know, catch thieves, he said it had actually captured a teenage family friend having sex. And Russell Taylor was like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. This is what Russell Taylor claims, right? He's like, oh, I can't believe this happened. Like, this was so unexpected. But Russell Taylor also claims that as soon as he told Jared about this video, Jared forced Russell to show him the video. Now, after that, Russell alleges that Jared continued to pressure him to see other activity in the house and pressure him to purchase more sophisticated video equipment that could be set up in bathrooms and bedrooms used by the children living in the home and their friends. Their friends that are encouraged to be there, and their friends that are encouraged to be drinking, and their friends that are encouraged to be engaging in sexual activity by Russell Taylor and Angela Taylor. So in 2012, Russell Taylor alleges that Jared asked him to get a date rape drug to use on the kids. Taylor said, quote, he wanted me to drug kids, to knock them out so he could touch them, end quote. Russell Taylor says that he and his wife were pawns of Jared, and Jared used his power and money to make them do things that they didn't want to do. He said that Jared was psychologically abusive towards him, and Jared made Russell Taylor call him daddy. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but this is how I handle disgusting and like troubling situations. I laugh. Also, it is kind of funny to think of Jared Fogle forcing Russell Taylor to call him daddy. So Russell Taylor said, quote, he would say, who's paying for this stuff? And I would say, you are, daddy, end quote. A report from a psychologist who'd analyzed Russell Taylor after his arrest said that Russell Taylor stated that he loved Jared. And the report said, quote, his statement suggested that he idolized Mr. Fogle to the degree that Mr. Taylor would justify his behaviors and or explain how Mr. Fogle forced him to act in certain ways. He did not seem aware of how odd these statements were, end quote. I guess Russell Taylor talked a lot about like his strong feelings for Jared, how they both had similar experiences in childhood, growing up, sort of isolated, friendless, the odd man out, you know, just kind of not like accepted by their peers. And they both shared this trauma. Like, who freaking is accepted by their peers in middle school and high school, though? Like, come on, man. I'm not going to like... I want to tell you everything, but I don't want you to feel bad for these scumbags. So yes, they have this shared trauma. Like, yeah, along with like 9 billion other people on planet Earth who thought high school was the worst time of their life, okay? We all hated it. We all got treated like crap, except for like 0.00005% of people who happen to just like peak in high school. But what are they doing now? Anyways, Russell Taylor also said there was like some abuse from his parents in his childhood and things like that. Nothing that explains this away, nothing that justifies it. But yes, it did seem that Russell had developed like this kind of like, I don't know, bond with Jared Fogle. He would do anything for him. It was like unconditional love. Russell Taylor's attorneys would state that Jared had controlled their client. He owned the house that Russell Taylor and his family lived in. Jared would provide lavish experiences and trips and things for Taylor and for his family. And therefore, Jared, because he was manipulating Russell Taylor and controlling him, he'd found the perfect person to carry out his sexually deviant pursuits. That's what the lawyers say. Like, Russell Taylor's completely fine and innocent, and he was disgusted by this stuff. Jared forced him to do it. I don't know if it works like that. I feel like Russell Taylor was already into it before he knew that Jared was into it, and it seemed more to me like Russell wanted the money and the trips and the 4-star hotels to keep going and wanted to kind of keep like living in his house. So that's why he did it. But okay, I mean, you could have moved out of your house. You could have gotten a new house. You could have paid your own way like a real man. And you could have gotten a new job. And you could have, you know, just stayed in regular hotels instead of the Ritz-Carlton, but you wanted to continue that. You wanted to maintain your lifestyle and you didn't want to lose anything. So you victimized children One, because you liked it, I think, personally, and two, because you wanted your life to continue on the way it was. And so you're a piece of shit. There's no explanations. There's no excuses. I don't care if you were bullied in middle school and high school. I don't care if you were the most bullied kid in the entire world. No justification for this. So when they're going through this material on Russell's computers and hard drives and stuff, they kind of catch wind that Jared Fogel's somehow connected to this. So on July 7th, 2015, investigators from the FBI and the Indiana State Police descended on the home of Jared Fogel, located at 4500 Woods Edge Drive at sunrise. And by 7:30 a.m., investigators were seen leaving the house with electronics, documents, and other items, loading those items into an evidence truck and driving away. And then Jared also went with the police to the police station to answer some questions. And like I said, the reason law enforcement went to Jared's home in Zionsville, Indiana, was because two of the thumb drives that had been found in Russell Taylor's home office that contained commercially made CSAM from Eastern Europe revealed files with connection to Taylor's employer, Jared Fogel. That same day at around 1 p.m., Subway issued a statement saying, quote, "We are shocked about the news and believe it is related to a prior investigation of a former Jared Foundation employee. We are very concerned and will be monitoring the situation closely," end quote. So Jared must have been like making them feel better about it. You know, when it hit the news, they probably called him. They're like, "What the hell's going on, Jared?" And he's like, "Oh, this is nothing. This is nothing. Don't worry about it. It's just Russell Taylor. What a creep, right? I'm as surprised as you guys are." Yeah, they're just, checking into him. This has nothing to do with me. But by 5:30 that evening, Subway had changed their tune, stating, quote, "Subway and Jared Fogel have mutually agreed to suspend their relationship due to the current investigation. Jared continues to cooperate with authorities, and he expects no actions to be forthcoming. Both Jared and Subway agree that this was the appropriate step to take," end quote. First of all, Jared Fogel's the last person who should be the judge of what appropriate behavior is, okay? And Subway, you kind of are in the same boat because you let him work for you for so long. And do you think that when Subway said that Jared expects no forthcoming actions, do you think that meant that at that time, on the day that police officers and FBI agents were going through his home and his electronics with a fine-tooth comb, he didn't think anything was going to happen and that he wasn't going to be arrested? Silly rabbit. During the investigation, authorities reviewed more than 159,000 text messages, 27,000 emails, 47,000 images, and 3,000 videos. And what did they find? Well, they found plenty. The court documents discuss minor victims 1 through 12, and these numbers represent 12 minor girls and boys who lived in Indiana. And right around the time of March 2011 and right about on January 30th, 2015, Russell Taylor used minor victims 1 through 12 to engage in sexually explicit conduct for the purposes of secretly producing video and photos of this conduct. The court document says, quote, "These images and videos included a lascivious exhibition of the genitals or pubic area of the minors, while some material also included sexually explicit conduct, depending upon the minors involved." End quote. This document also states that all 12 of these minor victims did not know that they were being secretly recorded. Quote, "Rather, the images or videos were produced using multiple hidden cameras concealed in clock radios, positioned so they would capture the minors changing clothes, showering, bathing, or engaging in other activities. Taylor distributed some of these sexually explicit materials and videos of minors to other persons." End quote. On multiple occasions in March of 2011 and in April of 2015, Jared Fogel received several images and videos of nude or partially clothed minor children who were engaged in sexually explicit conduct. Jared knew that these children were under the age of 18. You can tell that from the text messages. And he knew that some of the minors in this material were as young as 13 and 14 years old. Jared also knew that these kids were people that Russell Taylor knew in real life. Jared knew specific details about the minor victims that were featured in this material, including their relationship to his friend Russell Taylor, their relationship to Hannah and Christian, their real names, where they lived, and in some cases, Jared had even arranged to meet these victims in person at social events throughout Indiana, like dinners and things, just so that he could look at them in real life and then text Russell Taylor after and be like, "Oh, I would do this to her. I would do this to her." So sick. There's also text messages showing that Jared and Russell Taylor had discussed the fact that Taylor was producing this CSAM. So Jared knew very well what Taylor was doing. He saw it, he benefited from it, and then he encouraged him to continue doing it. And according to law enforcement, in some of these conversations, Jared was making comments approving of this and discussing some of these minor victims by name. And it was also discovered that apart from producing his own CSAM content, Russell Taylor had taken to the darkest corners of the internet to receive CSAM commercially made by others, which he also gave to Jared. Like I said, this content was the one that was made outside of the US, and some of the minor victims in these videos were as young as 6 years old. On or about October 2015 and on or about April 29th, 2015, Jared showed another person this CSAM that Russell Taylor had given him. So now we have like backup people, not just Russell Taylor who's got an axe to grind. We have other people who can testify to the fact that Jared was in possession of this. He was enjoying it, and he was enjoying it enough to share it with someone else. Who is that somebody else? I have no idea. But I wonder if it was Rochelle, the radio DJ from Florida, or maybe another woman that we're going to talk about in a little bit who Jared was kind of talking to and sharing his sick desires with. I'm not done going over what Jared was accused of and later charged with, but I do want to pause here for a moment of irony. Before Jared from Subway became Jared the pedophile, Subway had actually been working on a rebranding campaign that would transform their 37-year-old spokesman into a family man. That's how they wanted to exhibit him to the world. Now, when this was happening in 2015, Jared was married and had 2 children, a 1-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. And that year, he and his family were actually featured in an animated Subway commercial. They also were seen together attending the premiere of Inside Out, a children's movie made by Pixar. Now, the month before the FBI raided his home, Jared Fogle sat down with Business Insider and he said, quote, "My life has evolved. The next step in my story is I have a family. And a lot of parents can relate to that." Can we stop for a second and reflect on the absurdity, the absolute idiocy of that comment? I have a family, and a lot of parents can relate to that. A lot of parents can relate to that, Jared. All parents can relate to that because they are parents. And one of the requirements of being a parent is that you have children, which means by default, you now have a family. What a moron. Anyways, Jared goes on to say, quote, "You want to be a role model for your children. And obviously, one of the most important things is maintaining the weight and keeping it off." End quote. Yes, Jared, that is one of the most important things you can teach your child as a parent, how to lose weight and keep it off. Not how to be a good person, not how to tie their shoes or ride their bikes, not about money management, not, like teaching them that being sexually attracted to children is wrong. It's really important that before you do any of that, you have to teach them how to lose the weight and keep it off. He's like a lizard person who has no emotions. And he just sort of watches other people to see how they act, and then he tries to mimic that, but he's also not too bright. So he's completely misinterpreted what actual human emotions are. And when he goes ahead and tries to act like a normal human, he says stupid shit like this. Jared continues, quote, "I'm not just a stagnant person like some of those other mascots. I hope to be a great parent and a great role model for kids anywhere. I hope to be with Subway for a long time to come." End quote. My favorite part, yes, did I enjoy the fact that he said, "I hope to be with Subway for a long time to come," like a month before his house was raided and the world knew who he was? Yes, I enjoy the irony of that. But also when he said, "I'm not like some of those other mascots. I'm not this stagnant person." That's hilarious because Business Insider gave examples of what those other mascots were or who they were that he was talking about. And one of the examples they gave was Ronald McDonald. Okay? Ronald McDonald. How dare you, Jared? How dare you say that Ronald McDonald is a stagnant person and he's not growing? You don't know what Ronald's doing behind the scenes, okay? McDonald's is his job. It's his job. He doesn't need to tell you about his kids and wife that he's got at home. He doesn't need to post on Instagram and show you what he's doing all the time, what he's having for lunch. He doesn't need to post a picture of his turkey sub. He doesn't need to hold his pants up all the time. He goes to work and then he clocks out and he goes home. How dare you say he's a stagnant person? You don't know his life, man. Rude. Okay, so Jared Fogle, he didn't just stick to viewing these photos and videos. The court paperwork claims that repeated text messages and emails showed that Jared had a pattern. He would find adult escorts online, barely legal adult escorts online. He would develop relationships with them, and then he would offer them money, finder's fees, he called them, to provide him access to minors for the purposes of sex that he would then again pay for. And reportedly, he did this in several different cities, including Las Vegas, Kansas City, and Richmond, Virginia. In November of 2012, Subway put Jared up at the Plaza Hotel, one of Manhattan's swankiest hotels, and it was reported that they booked him a $2,000 a night suite overlooking Central Park. Only the best for Jared. Screw Ronald McDonald. He can go in that regular old room with the twin bed. Now, why did Subway do this? Well, because they wanted Jared to promote Team Subway at the New York City Marathon. Like, they wanted Jared to run the marathon and do like some promotional spots and stuff like that. Jared didn't want that. Jared wanted to solicit the company of a 17-year-old escort at his lavish suite in the plaza. Now, is 17 legal in New York? Yes, it is. Barely, right? Also, this wasn't the only escort. I mean, he was spending a ton of money on sex workers, and he was constantly, I mean, he had been with so many, it would blow your mind. So this was not the only woman or girl he'd ever been with. He also hired a 16-year-old escort, and that's not legal. 16 is not legal. So anyways, on November 1st, 2 days before the marathon, Jared was seen at Tavern on the Green with Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps, and then Michael Phelps' mother and two sisters, and they're taking pictures, and they're just having a great day. And then the day after that, Jared actually was on a panel discussion with other Team Subway members. And then the day after that, he had a 17-year-old girl in his bed. The day after that, on November 4th, Jared texted this teenager, who's referred to as minor victim 13 in court documents, and he would text her several times over the next few months before returning to New York City the following January and hiring another escort. Now, this time he was staying at the Ritz-Carlton, and I believe it was this time that he was with this 16-year-old. And Jared told this teenage girl that if she could get him younger sex partners, boys or girls, it didn't matter, he would pay her a finder's fee. He said the younger, the better. And if she could get him someone 16 years old or younger, and that they could prove their age, he would pay her $400 at least. Now, he had a lot of rules and regulations about this, where it was like, oh, they need to be able to prove their age, and then you have to sleep with them so that you can make sure they're not like an undercover agent. Jared texted her another time asking, quote, "Is your Asian friend available? I can pay you a little finder's fee. I'll pay you big for 14 or 15-year-olds, end quote. During another texting conversation, Jared messaged the teenage escort and told her that he had a big proposition for her. And she was like, well, what is it? What can I do for you? And he was like, listen, I'll pay you well for this if you're willing to help. And he said, quote, do you have any access to young girls like 15 or 16? And she was like, why, baby? Why do you want that? Valid question. And he responded, it's what I crave. I would hook you up nicely if you helped, end quote. Oh, it's what I crave. What a freak. Now, this girl wrote back and she was like, oh, I have a cousin who's 15. And Jared was like, well, what's she look like? Adding that if the 15-year-old cousin was good looking, he would give them both $300. Sick. So he does this a lot. Like, there's a lot of texting conversations about this. He's trying to arrange sex with minor children. 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, things like that. That's what he's specifically asking for. Keep that in mind when we hear the way he defends himself later. So on August 19th, 2015, law enforcement arrested Jared Fogle at his home, and he was charged with distributing and receiving CSAM. He was also charged with traveling to engage in illicit sexual conduct with minors, and that same day, Jared entered a plea of guilty. He basically did a plea deal in exchange for a sentence of no more than 151 months in prison. And Jared would be sentenced on November 19th, 2015. And at that sentencing hearing, Jared brought along two expert witnesses to give their evaluation on him. And, so this could be taken into account as the judge decided on Jared's sentence. Now, these two so-called experts were Dr. John Bradford and Dr. Rick May. Dr. Rick May is not as offensive to me. He really didn't say much, but Dr. Bradford, was a forensic psychiatrist from Canada who had spent 2 days with Jared evaluating him before his sentencing. And here's where all the excuses and the pity parties start. First of all, from Dr. Bradford, we found out that Jared had been spending upwards of $12,000 a year on sex workers. Bradford said that he had spent 6 hours with Jared over the course of 2 days, which isn't a lot. Like if you're going to spend 2 days, like don't say you spent 2 days with him and then come back and be like, I spent 6 hours with him. You didn't spend 2 days with him, my friend. Not at all. So Dr. Bradford also performed what's called a volumetric test on Jared, which from what I can tell, this test measures blood flow to the penis, and it's typically used to identify sexual arousal, what causes somebody to become turned on. So they'll show these people like various images or whatever and see what causes the blood to flow to the penis or the genitals. Now, while Jared was hooked up to this thing, Dr. Bradford played him audio tapes that described sexual situations between adults and children. Dr. Bradford concluded that Jared suffered from hypersexuality, which had been kickstarted by his weight loss. But Dr. Bradford said, don't worry. Jared only has mild pedophilia, and he's also dependent on alcohol. So all of these things, make him like a really just normal, good person, but he's at a disadvantage because of his hypersexuality and his alcohol dependence and his mild pedophilia. Dr. Bradford said, quote, one of his problems was that he had an increased sex drive. The second problem was that he had some problems with attractions to teenage girls and also to young girls. End quote. Hold on. He's not done talking, but I need to interrupt him. First of all, he had some problems with attractions to teenage girls and also young girls. That's not a problem. It's a deviancy, okay? It's morally and legally wrong. It's a deviancy. He's mentally ill. He needs to be put on an island, and then that island needs to be like cut off from the earth so that it can float out to sea. Second of all, he was attracted to children, not young teenagers or young girls. Children. Let's call it what it is. The younger, the better, remember. That's what he said in his text messages. And it didn't matter if they were boys or girls. He just wanted children. Dr. John Bradford continues, quote, when I tested him in my laboratory, he did show some sexual interest in prepubescent children, so that would be 13 years of age or less. That is part of the presentation of pedophilia. Who gave this guy a PhD? Like, where did he go to school? I mean, wow. Really good work here. Really good work, Dr. John Bradford. He's attracted to minor children, and that is part of the presentation of pedophilia. It's like the whole presentation of pedophilia, you idiot. Dr. John Bradford continues, quote, in this case, there was no evidence of him ever having hands-on contact with a child, so the pedophilia would be mild. It is fantasies as opposed to direct sexual contact, end quote, dude. This Dr. Bradford clown must think we are really dumb. He's really pissing me off because Jared tried to get young children. He tried to get them in his hotel room so that he could have sex with them. And in each situation, it either didn't pan out or the person that he was asking for help to procure him, these minor children, like the sex traffickers he was asking for help, they couldn't accomplish what he wanted. So either they couldn't do it, they wouldn't do it, or just something fell through and it wasn't able to happen. But let us be honest with each other here. If Jared Fogle had been able to get his hands on a kid, he would have in a second. Like, he wouldn't have even had a second thought about it. He wouldn't have had any issues with that. That's what he wanted. It's what he craved. Are we going to act as if he didn't try? Like, is that what we're going to do here? Having fantasies and actively taking steps to try and make those fantasies a reality are two completely different things, Dr. Frickin' Bradford, you dumbass. I'm not saying he's a dumbass. He's probably super smart, but he also probably got paid a lot to say anything that minimized what Jared did. That's what I'm going to go ahead and say here. And if you're going to come in my comments and you're going to defend pedophiles, then I am going to block you and also probably report you to YouTube and also probably report you to the FBI, like your screen name and your comment, because That's concerning. That's a red flag. Do not defend pedophiles in my comment section. I don't want to hear about how they're mentally ill, about how they're victims, about how they just can't help themselves. Of course they can. Of course they can. Okay? So don't do that. Dr. John Bradford continued, quote, "The other part of it is, if you look at the kind of natural history of pedophilia, the urges and fantasies develop during the teenage years, and the behavior starts to occur around 19 or 20. Jared doesn't have the typical natural history, and again, there was no evidence, and he was investigated other than the exposure to CP or CSAM that he molested a child," end quote. It's a red flag to me about Dr. John Bradford that he referred to it as CP, which stands for something different than CSAM. Let me see if I can say the words, because at this point I don't care. CP stands for child porn. CSAM stands for child sex abuse material. That is what it is. CSAM is what it is when you see young children in these sorts of materials, because they are not old enough to understand what the hell is happening. It's not something they willingly decided to do. It's not something that they are even capable of willingly decide to do. So the fact that Dr. John Bradford called it CP instead of CSAM tells me everything I need to know about him. So Dr. John Bradford, he tried, right? He tried to make it seem like what Jared did wasn't that bad. And listen, there may not be evidence that was found that Jared had any hands-on abuse of children, but remember, when Jared was talking to Rochelle, he seemed to know an awful lot about how to manipulate young children into trusting him so that he could molest them. He seemed to know quite a bit. And he also had tons of stories of how he had already done that, when he was traveling overseas. Now, according to Dr. Bradford, who, remember, was hired by Jared and his legal team to be at the sentencing hearing, Dr. John Bradford blamed Jared's weight loss for his hypersexuality issues. Quote, "He was somebody who had a compulsive eating disorder from when he was quite young. As a young child, he was morbidly obese, probably by the age of 7, and he remained morbidly obese through to his 3rd year at university. He went from 450 pounds down to around 200 over about 1 year. Up until that point, his sex drive was very low, and after that, his sex drive increased quite dramatically," end quote. Dr. Bradford believed and told the judge that based on these factors, Jared would be unlikely to reoffend again after he was released from prison and after he had registered as a sex offender. So let's address a couple of things that Dr. John Bradford said, because he did contradict himself. First, he said, "I think that Jared has mild pedophilia because he doesn't present with the usual history of these kinds of urges developing in, late childhood and then acting on them in your 20s and stuff." He said that because Jared didn't have that typical history and he didn't present that way, that this meant, he was just a mild pedophile, a small little itty-bitty pedophile. But then Dr. Bradford goes on to say, well, listen, Jared is so hypersexual because he was so overweight, and obviously he didn't feel comfortable with himself and he wasn't confident and things like that. And then when he lost the weight, boom, boom, it all came rushing back. Now, couldn't you say the same about the pedophilia? How do you know Jared didn't present that way? How do you know he wasn't having those urges in his, teens and 20s? You don't know that. You just know he didn't act on them, as he didn't act on any sex with anyone because he was overweight and he didn't feel confident and he wasn't close to anybody. So, you can't say both things. Both things can't be true. And I get it. I do believe that because Jared had such a confidence problem and because he was so overweight that when he finally lost the weight, his sexuality probably kicked into overdrive. And that's fine. That happens to a lot of people. He's not unique in this. But why can't you just go out and, have sex with adult women? That's the thing that Dr. John Bradford appears to be missing purposely, right? Someone can be hypersexual and not be breaking the law and going after minor children. It's okay. I don't care if Jared's a sex addict. I don't care if Jared's a freak. I don't care if Jared wants to make a dungeon in his basement with BDSM stuff and whips. I don't care if Jared likes to be, ball gagged and on his hands and knees and stepped on with stilettos. I don't give a shit what Jared Fogle is into. Not at all. I do care that he's into children, right? So you can be hypersexual and not break the law and go after minors. So I don't even know why Dr. Bradford even bothers to say any of this. It's just like trying to throw something at the wall and seeing if it'll stick. Can something give Jared sympathy? Can something that I say make Jared look like a more sympathetic figure? No, nothing you can say can do that. Now keep in mind, also, clinically, there's no such thing as mild pedophilia. You can't be a little bit of a pedophile. You either are or you ain't, and he is. All right. And when the prosecution asked Dr. Bradford, like, mild pedophilia, is this a clinical term? Like, is this something that doctors use? Dr. Bradford said, no, I made it up. He didn't say I made it up, but he said I came up with it myself, which is the same thing. I made it up. I made it up, basically. There is no such thing. There's no sliding scale of pedophilia. Disgusting. And, the prosecution obviously wasn't buying the whole Jared was just fantasizing argument. And the prosecutor stated, quote, he went to great lengths to engage in commercial sex acts with minors. He bought and offered plane tickets. He reserved and paid for hotel rooms, made arrangements for the commercial sex acts. He did all of this in addition to actually having sex with 2 different prostituted minors for money. He sought to use his existing contacts with prostitutes to find other children with whom he could have sexual contact, specifying the younger the better. End quote. And point blank, period. Now, don't come after me because they said prostitutes. Okay, they said it. I put it in the quote boxes. I didn't say it, but I am going to quote legitimately and accurately, because that's what we need to do here. The prosecution asked for Jared to be sentenced to 12 years in prison. The defense thought that 5 years. 5 years was a better number. But Judge Tanya Walton Pratt sentenced Jared Fogle to about 15 and a half years in federal prison. And he's actually due to be released in 2029. So hide your kids, hide your wife, right? Literally. He was also ordered to pay $1.4 million in total restitution to his victims. And then during the sentencing, Jared Fogle started to cry. He was so sad. He was so sad. He said, listen, you putting me in prison for 15 years? This sentence isn't just going to affect me. It's going to affect my family because now I'm leaving my wife to be a single mother. Oh, come on. And the judge, I love this judge, by the way. She said, don't worry, Jared. You gave your wife almost $7 million. She'll be all right. She'll be better off without you, basically. And in fact, Jared's second wife, Katie McLaughlin, would be more than all right without Jared put away. Because as soon as she found out what he was up to, she filed for divorce. Now, Katie McLaughlin would later sue Subway, claiming that they'd known about what Jared was doing. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And remember, I said Jared had a ton of family support during this trial, something like 12 people in his corner in that courtroom to see what his sentencing was going to be. And the Fogle family had a public statement to share. It said, quote, our family is shocked and profoundly disappointed in Jared's abhorrent criminal behavior, and we are very concerned for the well-being of those affected by his conduct. All right, good start. Good start. I like it. But it goes downhill. They continue. At the same time, we are gratified that Jared is accepting responsibility for what he has done by agreeing to plead guilty to the charges filed today and by volunteering to make restitution to the victims. We are also gratified that he is seeking medical treatment. We hope that he will become healthy again and are confident that after he serves his sentence, he will continue to make amends. We look forward to the day that he rejoins our family and society. End quote. You're the only ones who are looking forward to the day that that monster rejoins your family and society. You're better off without him. We all are. I mean, come on. What is this statement? Accepting responsibility for what he's done? The dude got caught. The dude got caught. Do you think that if Jared Fogle hadn't been caught, if he hadn't been turned in by multiple people who thought he was a sick monster, do you think he would have just walked into the police station one day and said, guys, I got a story to tell you. I got something to tell you, man. I need help. I need help. He got caught seeking medical treatment. Yeah, he did that. Not until he got caught. And something like this, what Jared did, what he's into, what he's got a compulsion for, you don't really get better. You don't become healthy again. It's always there. That's why I think that he and others like him should be put on an island and then would just saw the island away from the land and let it float out into the horizon. Where is it going to go? Where is it going to end up? I don't know. Hopefully it sinks. And of course, Jared was willing to take so much responsibility for his actions that he appealed his sentence. He claimed that the court had made 3 factual errors. Number 1, he said the court had been influenced by Russell Taylor and his conduct, and that behavior on Russell Taylor's part was then unfairly applied to Jared. Secondly, he said the court based its sentence on fantasies rather than what he actually did. He said that his sentence went beyond what could actually be proved and relied on things that Jared says he didn't do. And 3, he said that it was factually inaccurate that he had received and conspired to distribute material depicting victims as young as 6. And it's funny reading this brief because whoever wrote it clearly doesn't feel that Jared has one leg to stand on with any of these claims, but specifically this one, because they write, quote, Fogel did not dispute that he received and conspired to distribute material depicting victims as young as 6. He also admitted that he looked at the material and distributed it to another friend. He shades his admission by claiming that he did not affirmatively ask for this particular material, but he cannot escape the undisputed fact that he willingly took, looked at, and then distributed the whole set of material at issue, which contained some of the worst images of 6-year-olds. End quote. Yeah, electric chair. He's so stupid. I hate Jared Fogel, man. He's like, I didn't ask for it, so I shouldn't be in trouble for, like, taking it, looking at it, enjoying it, and showing it to somebody else. Like, is the court wrong here? I think so. What's his problem? Like, the person writing the brief, like, I could see their furrowed brow as they're typing. They're like, he didn't deny taking the material. He didn't deny showing it to somebody else. He didn't deny that there was victims as young as 6 portrayed in this material. Like, what is he talking about? Like, I could just see it happening. And because that was my face. Now, there's a few people who claim that Subway knew about Jared and what he was up to for years, and Subway did nothing about it. Now, these are just allegations. This is just claims made by other people. I am not saying that they're true. I'm not saying that there's any evidence that Subway knew that Jared was into small children or young children, and they turned their heads and looked the other way and maybe even covered it up so that they could continue using him in their advertising and marketing materials because he was a cash cow for them. I'm not saying that at all. Not at all. Okay? So don't come for me, Subway. I'm just saying that some people say it. Okay? So we're going to talk about Cindy Mills. Cindy Mills was a former Subway franchisee, and she had a thing with Jared. Okay? Kind of similar to Rochelle, or at least what Rochelle was pretending to have with Jared. That's what Cindy Mills had with Jared, which, gross. Cindy worked for Subway, or had her own franchise from 2006 to 2012. She'd met Jared at a Subway event, and they began an affair. Now, during that time, they got close, and Jared Fogel admitted to her that he had taken a trip to Thailand during which he paid for sex with minors who were between the ages of 9 and 16 years old. And then he told her that he liked them really young. And he also asked her if she would set him up with her cousin, who was underage at the time. Now, Jared's ex-wife, Katie McLaughlin, also claimed that Subway had been alerted to Jared's behavior several times and that they did not act on it. And in 2016, she sued Subway for several things. She sued Subway for invasion of privacy. She sued them for misappropriation of her likeness and also for intentional infliction of emotional distress and negligence. Now, here's her statement, quote, "When the FBI banged on my door on July 7th, 2015, I thought it was the worst day of my life. I had no idea that the nightmare was just beginning. Like the rest of America, I was shocked by what I learned in the weeks and months to follow. First, let me say, to the victims of my ex-husband, you are never far from my thoughts and prayers. I can only imagine what you've been going through. A mother's most basic instinct is to protect her children, and this is one of the most horrific crimes. I know the healing process is lifelong. Finding out that your husband and the father of your children is a child predator and knowing that his job involved him visiting schools on a regular basis is devastating. Finding out that Subway did not act on at least one complaint while continuing to utilize Jared as their spokesperson and facilitate his visits to those hundreds of schools is beyond comprehension. I filed this lawsuit because I have questions that someday my children will ask me and that I imagine the families of the 14 victims are asking. Questions of which I have no other way to get answers. Questions like, what did Subway know and when did they know it? What investigation, if any, did they conduct? Did they ever notify the authorities? I also filed this lawsuit because I'm seeking damages from Subway. As the complaint alleges, there have been reports that Subway received at least one complaint that Jared had a sexual interest in children. Subway even took the step of marketing him as a family man and used my children and my likeness in that campaign. I did not give them consent to do this. This is not a position I ever wanted to be in. Bringing this lawsuit was not an easy decision to make. I am by nature and practice a very private person. I've kept my children out of the public arena despite their father's career, arrest, and conviction, end quote. So that is crazy to me that Subway made an animated commercial featuring Jared and Jared's wife and kids and didn't ask Katie McLaughlin if it was okay that they did that. That is crazy to me. If it's true, I'm not saying it is Subway. Don't come for me. But according to the documents, on at least 3 occasions, Subway received reports about Jared Fogle, but they never reported anything to law enforcement. As early as 2004, Subway's vice president received a complaint that Jared had approached a young girl about engaging in a sex act while attending a Subway promotional event in Vegas. And then in 2008, Cindy Mills, she actually brought her information and her texts to Jeff Moody, who was the Subway CEO at that time. Now, a senior PR manager asked Jared if the allegations were true. He denied it, and so they did nothing. Additionally, Subway claims they received one serious complaint about Jared in 2011, but they said they did nothing at that time because it did not mention criminal sexual behavior. And guess who made that complaint? According to Subway spokeswoman Kristen McMahon, the complaint was from Rochelle Herman. So listen, this is just what I think happened allegedly. I'm not saying that this is what happened. I'm speculating. I have no way of actually knowing what happened, but based on prior knowledge of what Jared was saying to Rochelle, prior knowledge of what Rochelle showed the FBI and the police when she went to them for help, I would assume that Rochelle told Subway these things that Jared said to her and also showed them the messages that he had sent to her. So I'm not sure how they can say it didn't include any hint of criminal sexual behavior. Now, what I take this to mean is that Subway heard what Rochelle had to say, and they also heard what Jared had to say to her. But because he hadn't acted on it, or she didn't have proof that he did, they did nothing. Kind of like the FBI, right? But it's different for me. It's different. I understand that the FBI says to Rochelle, we need hard proof or we cannot arrest this person, because if we arrest this person with just circumstantial evidence, there is a chance that we go to trial with what we have, which we feel like is a lot and you feel like is a lot. But is it enough to meet the standard of law that a jury is going to find this person guilty? Or if we go to trial with this stuff and it's not enough, he gets off. So we need something really concrete before we can arrest him. Now, with Subway, it's different because if Subway executives saw the text that Jared was sending Rochelle and heard the recordings of what Jared was saying to Rochelle on the phone, and they did nothing, they are liable. They should go on that island with Jared and the rest of the men like him, because they're liable for that. That's disgusting. You can't just say oh, he never did anything to children. He just talked about it, so that's fine. And then continue using him as your spokesperson and sending him to middle schools. You can't do that. Electric chair for you, Subway. So I do believe, in my opinion, speculating, don't come for me, Subway, that they knew what Jared had said and heard the tapes and heard what Rochelle had to say, and they did nothing. But I mean, this was just another domino falling in the line of pieces that was crashing to the ground for Subway, because they've had some rough times. They've had some scandals. They've had some controversies. For example, in 2014, we have what's known as the yoga mat scandal. And it all went down when a food blogger found out that the fast food chain was using a chemical called, and I'm going to try to get this right, but probably won't, azodicarbonamide in their bread. Azodicarbonamide. And this is a chemical that can be used as a bleaching agent, but is most commonly used as a component of plastic and rubber materials, including yoga mats. So this chemical has actually been banned for decades across Europe, but the FDA in the U.S. has approved it in food at low levels. Even though when this chemical is baked or heated, like you would do for bread, you bake bread, it creates a byproduct that's known to cause cancer in humans. No big deal. Don't worry. Just enjoy the bread. Now, Subway did end up removing this ingredient from their bread, and they were not the only company who had it in their bread. Many other fast food chains, I think, including Wendy's, did have it in their bread as well. But the Subway bread wasn't quite perfect yet, because in 2020, an Ireland Supreme Court ruled that Subway's bread has far too much sugar in it for it to even be classified as bread, because sugar makes up 10% of the weight of the flour, which is 5 times what the law in Ireland deems to be acceptable. So basically, they have to say that Subway's bread is like a pastry or like a confection because it's got so much sugar in it. A 6-inch Subway bread roll contains 3 to 5 grams of sugar, except for the gluten-free bread, which, don't worry, has 7 grams of sugar. Now, the following year, there was more controversy when people found out that some of the proteins that were being used in Subway sandwiches, specifically the chicken and the tuna, didn't seem to really be chicken or tuna at all. So let's start with the tuna. A marine biologist analyzed 20 samples of tuna from 20 different Subways, and they found that 19 out of the 20 had no detectable tuna DNA whatsoever. But the sandwiches, or the tuna, they did contain DNA from other animals such as chicken and pork. And according to a Canadian study, a DNA testing of chicken sold at Subway restaurants in Canada revealed that their oven-roasted chicken tested as only 53.6 chicken, while strips of its sweet onion teriyaki chicken were only 42.8% chicken DNA. Most of the chicken's non-meat DNA was soy, but who knows what else is in there. Subway swears that their tuna is 100% tuna and their chicken is 100% chicken. They swear up and down. They are so pissed off that people are testing their products or their proteins and stuff in their sandwiches. And they were like, well, there's other stuff in the tuna, there's mayonnaise and there's stuff like that. So that's naturally going to reduce the amount of tuna DNA. But they didn't find no tuna DNA, dude. None. Can you explain that? So gross. I don't think I can eat at Subway again. All right, so let's just wrap up some loose ends here. Let's talk about Russell Taylor and Angela Taylor, who I think got divorced from Russell Taylor after he was arrested, and then she changed her name back to Angela Baldwin. But regardless, I'm going to call her Angela Taylor because to me, those two people deserve each other. Now, the ironic thing is, remember, Russell was initially charged with, a couple counts of doing what he did. And those charges were overturned because of some legal issue, some legal mistake, whatever. But then the police went back to the drawing board and they were like, okay, let's investigate again so we can bring charges against him again because we're not letting him go. He's not getting away with this. And when they did that, they found more stuff. And that's when they really dug deep into the behavior of Angela Taylor and what she was doing. And when they came back, they hit him with more charges and they arrested Angela. So good job to them. Good job to them to not just give up and let this dude go because he's a menace to society. So this article says, quote, Subway Jared Fogle pedophile coworker and his wife were sentenced to a combined 60 years in prison for sexually molesting young girls and installing cameras to secretly take videos and photos of the victims. A federal judge sentenced Russell Taylor, 50, who pleaded guilty last year to 30 child pornography and sexual exploitation crimes for his acts against 9 children on Monday. 30. Remember, it was I can't remember exactly how many it was, and I don't have my notes in front of me. It was I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 12 maybe, and now 30. So, Russell Taylor, how'd that go for you? This article says that Angela Baldwin was convicted in 2020 of 4 child exploitation and child pornography crimes, and she was sentenced to over 30 years. The article continues on, quote, during Monday's sentencing hearing, Pratt described the 4-year grooming, exploitation, and molestation of the children from 2011 to 2015 as a mutual perversion between Taylor, Baldwin, and Fogle. Taylor told the court Monday that he was vile, selfish, self-loathing, sorry excuse for a human, yep, but that time in prison had changed him. Oh, man, you were on a roll there. You were on a roll with the accountability there for a minute, Russell Taylor. And then you went with the old prison has changed me. Did you find God? Did you find God in prison? Probably. He said he had taken advantage of a sex offender rehabilitation class while incarcerated. Well, there you go. Healed. Let him out, Judge. Decision made. Let him out. Let him go home. Let him go home. So yeah, Russell Taylor, Angela Baldwin, Angela Taylor, both in prison for a while. As far as Hannah and Christian, Angela's daughters, I mean, obviously this entire thing was incredibly traumatic for them. They have moved on. They have their own families. They're living their own lives. And you would wonder, like, does it feel bad to you that you don't have your mom, you know, that she went to prison for 30 years and you're not going to see her for a long time? And it looks like Hannah and Christian are okay with this, right? They're okay with this because of what she did to them. And they think that it's better that she's not around them. And I completely agree. What kind of mother would do that to her own children? Prison is too good for Angela. Prison is too good for Russell. Prison is too good for Jared. I really think that this island idea, this floating, possibly sinking, definitely sinking island thing, should be put into practice. I think I just honestly solved a lot of the world's problems right here, right now. I feel amazing. Anyways, that is where we will end. I mean, there's just so much that you could talk about with this. There's so much you could kind of like stem off of this. But yeah, it's upsetting. It's devastating. I don't want Jared Fogle to ever get out of prison. I think he's a scumbag. I think that everybody who had anything to do with him is a scumbag. And I'm glad that they're all away, at least for now. But let me know what you think about this case and about Jared and Angela and Russell Taylor in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, and subscribe if you haven't already, because I'd really like to see all of you on every video I post, and you will be notified when I post a new video if you are subscribed and if you hit that notification button. Also, you can follow me on social media. My handles are in the description box, as well as a link to Criminal Coffee Company, the coffee company that myself and my co-host Derek Levasseur have started together. Amazing coffee and really super cute merch. I mean, I talk about it every video. Derek and I also host Crime Weekly, a true crime podcast that you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts, or you can actually watch the videos on YouTube. The podcasts go out on Friday and the YouTube video goes out on Sunday. So follow the podcast and follow the YouTube channel. The links are in the description box. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I know this was a hard one, but it is important to talk about these things. It's important to understand that you can't trust nobody, especially when it comes to your children. So thanks for being here and thanks for getting through it with me. As long as we have each other, we are stronger. We have strength in numbers, and we can raise awareness and shine a light on these terrible things that happen, and also really teach each other to be more vigilant and to be more aware of the people we let in our lives, the people we let close to us and to our families, and to understand that they may have nefarious intentions and they may not have our best interest at heart. Thank you so much for being here. Stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. And I'll see you very soon. Bye.
Straight down, and that river runs deep, the mountains get steep, and the voices getting too loud. Oh, these feelings I've buried, it's looking like a cemetery. They're coming back from the grave, calling out my name, better say a Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly, and so you got to let it go. I got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. Been played from my face, don't bleed. Got blood on the strings, blood on the strings, blood on the strings. Lord knows it's been a rough week. Yeah, I'm channeling my son house, 'cause I gotta let these blues out. So I reach 40 years.